every aspect of life, including our political, economic, social and cultural outlook. Mahatma Gandhi once said that the problem in the India of his day was not the army of occupation, but the fact that the Indian mind was occupied. And I couldn't agree more, and we can see that very much in this country. Since the 1950s, and especially since the 1970s, a combination of the influx of American corporations and of cultural Americanization has gravely damaged our attitude to labour and worker solidarity, and has inflicted critical injury on the trade union movement. And in this generation, it has provided a fertile soil for the native adherents of economic neoconservatism. But the imperial question in 2012 Ireland is not merely the domination of London and Washington, but also the domination of Brussels. The myth that the EU was established to promote peace was for a long time accepted in this country. But today we see the EU maintains no less than 23 battle groups, with Irish participation in 2 of them. PAN has produced an excellent pamphlet which is being distributed free by Roger here, but he would like a contribution if possible. And it's essential reading. These battle groups exist to further European imperial interests anywhere in the world, and to suppress resistance to capitalist exploitation, and to ensure control by the imperial powers of natural resources. The EU institutions exist to further the interests of European capitalism. The vestiges of national independence, sovereignty and democracy that still prevail are an impediment to them in that task. European law makes it virtually illegal for member states of the EU to socialise the means of production and exchange, or their essential services, and places great pressure on them to desocialise, or as they say, privatise, anything that moves without providing capitalist profit. In recent years, imperialism, which nowadays means financial capitalism, has engulfed most of the world. This has gone along with the speedy dismantling of labour rights and welfare entitlements, which have been achieved over many decades. It is the financial capitalists who decide the policies of states. When it comes to government policy, it's not the interest of the Irish people which is the predominant factor in this country, or the people in any country. There is nobody in the cabinet who will ask before decisions are made, how will this affect the workers of this country? On the other hand, I'm sure the question is often asked, how will this affect the market, Taoiseach? Not only will the various facets of the national question not ignore you, but imperialism won't ignore you. And if you pretend it's not there, it'll still control your life. Brendan Howlin was talking a couple of days ago about the national interest. Now that used to be Desi O'Malley's mantra. There is little that is national about the national interest. And the focus for Republicans must be the interest of the working people of Ireland. In the 1990s, we were deluged with books and newspaper articles which claimed that class had disappeared, and as a factor in society. Nobody believes that nowadays. The local agents of imperialism are nationalists in a peculiar way. They carry balls of shamrock around the world on St. Patrick's Day, hold emotional commemorations of Irish warriors of the past, including those who served in the imperial armies, and give tearjerking renderings of the fields of Athenry on occasions appropriate and inappropriate. I call them crypto-republicans. This crypto-republicanism waves the tricolour and appeals to nationalist feeling, and is a strong part of Irish political culture today. In many circles, Irish identity has been reduced to crack, green jerseys, binge drinking, and isn't Enda great in the European Council family photograph? Many years ago, Connolly warned about crypto-republicanism. After Ireland is free, says the patriot who won't put socialism, we will protect all classes. And if you won't pay your rent, you'll be evicted, same as now. But the evicting party, under the command of the sheriff, will wear green uniforms and the harp without the crown, and the warrants turning you out on the roadside will be stamped with the arms of the Irish Republic. He warned about thinking we had independence if we changed the colour of the post boxes and decorated the country with green flags. Connolly answered the question, what is a free nation? By saying, a free nation is one which possesses absolute control over its own internal resources and powers, and which has no restriction on its intercourse with all other nations similarly circumstanced, except the restrictions placed upon it by nature. And in Labour and Irish history, he wrote something even more important. The Irish question, he said, is a social question. The whole age-old fight of the Irish people against their oppressors resolves itself in the last analysis into a mastery of the means of life, the sources of production in Ireland. And he showed time and time again that not only was the working class the only class which could be depended on in the struggle for independence, but that classless approach to national freedom was meaningless and would result in a mirage of independence. The last 20 years has seen the growth of what I might call neo-Redmondism. Today's neo-Redmondites tell us that there is something in imperialism for us. They want us to run with the big bullies. That's why we have a military presence in Afghanistan. A minute presence, admittedly, just to keep it legal. This is very much in the tradition of Redmond. And the neo-Redmondites constantly tell us we are all Europeans now, as if geography, history and European cultural connections had just started. We have had national sentiment in the service of imperialism time and time again over the last 40 years, in referendum after referendum, on the process of handing over more and more of the sovereign rights of the people to the still developing European state. We are assured that we Irish were being put on the same level as larger states. And it was hinted we were so great anyway that soon we would be running the whole EU. When an Irish citizen reached any high office in Brussels, we were encouraged to cheer without any regard to the policies such a person would be promoting or inflicting on the entire Brussels complex. This kind of nationalism reached its zenith during the misnamed Celtic Tiger, when we were expected to be proud that our tycoons were getting richer and richer and our bankers were creating enormous amounts of credit, in effect shoveling billions of euros to themselves, their relatives and friends. It was also suggested at the same time in the 1990s that our bankers were the best in the world. Now we're led to believe that some of them were the worst in the world. They were never the best, and believe it or not, they weren't the worst. They were just bankers. Make no mistake about that. Bank owners and top bank management have nothing else in their mind but to make profit. They don't care about their workers or 99.99% of their customers. They don't care about society, and they don't care about the quality of life. They don't care about human rights, and so forth. There's so much that one would like to go on, but I've been warned not to go on any more than 25 minutes. There's a couple of points that I just will have to bring in. One of these is that the state as it exists doesn't just represent a failure to adopt republicanism. It's much more than that. The state that we live in is a tool of capitalism. And if there's any doubt about that, look at the lawless conduct of the Garda Síochána in repressing in repressing the resistance to the devastation wreaked by Shell in Rossport, County Mayo. This is the sort of thing that happens time and time again, that law is for us, for who are down here, but the state itself does not appear law, right? Right. Republicanism will mean not just national independence and not just national unity. Now, not only can we ignore the issue of national independence, but we cannot ignore the issue of national unity. One of the things in the last 90 years that we don't like to admit has been the relative success of partition. In the continuous struggle between imperialism and liberation worldwide, the imperial side has always tried to establish what nowadays we call facts on the ground. 110 years ago, nobody in Ireland, nationalist or unionist, wanted partition. And when the far right of the English establishment could not stop the momentum towards home rule, they introduced partition. It was not introduced for pseudo-democratic reasons or out of sympathy with any Irish aspiration, but to minimise the effect and quality of Irish self-government in the greater part of the island. It also cut the industrial area around Belfast out of the Free State, and that industrial area is no longer what it was at all. But let us not forget that at the time, Belfast was bigger than Dublin. Partition's purpose was control of the whole country. It did not fail its creator's purpose. Indeed, it was so successful that they went on to impose partition in Palestine, India and Cyprus to the detriment of these countries. Partition in Ireland institutionalised religious sectarianism of a crude kind, but did much worse in its effect on the Irish mind in narrowing and often putting a sectarian slant on the Northern nationalist outlook, in fossilising unionist Protestant sectarianism, and also in creating a partitionist mentality in the mind of people in the 26 counties. Just to finish, I would say that republicanism demands meaningful participation of citizens in the administration of their republic, in forming its legislation and in developing society. This week I learned a new word from Michael Noonan, actually, reinvigoration. He was talking about reinvigorating the pro-park agreement. Well, the time has come for a reinvigoration of republicanism, because never was republicanism so relevant. And may I suggest a minimal programme for such an exercise that republicanism implies as essentials in the sovereignty of the people. Work for all and the eradication of unemployment. Universal public health care with no support for the commercialisation of medical practice. Taking control of natural resources for the benefit of the nation. Free education for all with emphasis on the needs of personal development, citizenship and society. Promote the Irish language and ensure its future development. Ensure access for all to culture and the arts. Establish a system of justice which will underline the equality of citizens and human rights and will be accessible to all and not just the moneyed classes. Development of science, research and technology in the interest of the nation and the human race rather than commercial interests. Adequate care of children, the elderly and people with special needs. Good quality housing for all with sufficient electricity, heating and running water. This is the vision of the Republic on Ashling. Let's ensure its achievement.
Quite sure we have all learned from that very excellent address. And before I introduce our next speaker, could I just repeat what Michael has said about the two pamphlets that that have been circulated, very excellent pieces of work, and as we all know, there's a cost involved in all of these things, so I'm quite sure if you can make some contribution, it would be not only appreciated, but it would be very well used and usefully put to use. So, after thanking Michael, we're now coming to our second speaker tonight, and our second speaker is Dr. Mary Murphy. Mary is